In March 1944, the North Atlantic roared like an angry beast. The wind screamed across black waves, and sheets of icy spray hammered the deck of the CS Telconia, a ship built not for war, but for patience. She was a cable layer, a vessel meant to connect, not to fight. But in this war, even connection was a battlefield. The Telconia had been quietly pressed into Allied service under the Ministry of Information. Her new mission was one almost no one knew about, and no one outside her crew ever would. A vital transatlantic cable, one that carried coded signals between Britain and America, had gone dead. Somewhere along the seabed, beneath miles of water and storm, the wire had been cut. Some blamed the storm, others whispered about U-boats. But among the officers of naval intelligence, there was a darker suspicion: sabotage. If the cable wasn't repaired quickly, the entire Allied coordination network for the upcoming invasion of France could collapse. And so the Telconia set sail. Inside the cramped bridge, Captain Harold Fletcher stood over a flickering map, tracing a thin red line across the Atlantic. He was a civilian engineer, not a naval officer, but months of secret missions had aged him beyond his 40 years. "Depth here, 3,000 fathoms, muttered his chief engineer, Ellis, marking coordinates. "If the break's there, sir, it'll be the deepest we've ever gone." Fletcher didn't answer. He just looked out the window at a horizon that never stopped moving, and said, "Then we'd better pray the ocean's in a forgiving mood." Down below deck, the cable room hummed like a heartbeat. Huge drums of copper wire gleamed under lantern light, the air thick with oil and salt. At the center stood a young diver, Thomas Reed, barely 24, checking his suit for leaks. He had grown up near Portsmouth, the son of a fisherman, and joined the Navy as a diver before being reassigned to this special civilian service. He didn't mind. He liked the silence of the deep more than the chaos of the surface. "Ever think about what's at the bottom?" asked Ellis, tightening the clamps on Reed's helmet. Reed smiled faintly. "Just cables, sir, and secrets." By the third day, the weather turned. Waves rose higher than the bridge windows. The ship groaned, its hull shuddering as if it might split in two. And then a sound, a faint, rhythmic tapping echoing through the hull. "Sonar contact!" the watchman shouted. For a moment, every man froze. Was it a whale, a rockslide, or a U-boat's propellers? The captain ordered silence. They listened again. Tap, tap, tap. Ellis leaned over the equipment, squinting. "It's mechanical. Could be the broken cable striking rock, or someone's down there with it," Fletcher finished grimly. On the fourth day, the Telconia reached the coordinates where the signal had vanished. The deck crew lowered the grappling hooks, massive steel claws meant to drag along the ocean floor and snag the cable. Hours passed. The wind howled. Men waited, tense and silent, as the steel lines groaned under the weight of the deep. Then, a jolt. "Contact!" shouted Reed. The winches squealed as they pulled something up through the dark. At first, it looked like just a length of cable, black, barnacle-crusted, heavy as sin. But then the floodlights caught something else, a jagged edge, cleanly cut. Someone had sliced it with precision, not torn by nature, not corroded by time. Ellis whispered, "This wasn't an accident." The captain ordered Reed to dive. He descended slowly into the cold blackness, every inch of his body squeezed by the crushing weight of the sea. The world narrowed to his own breath and the faint glow of his helmet lamp. At 600 feet, he saw it, the other end of the cable, dangling loose. And beside it, a shadow. A small metal object, round, smooth, with a faint emblem etched on it. He brushed the silt away. It was a pressure shell, the kind used by saboteurs to plant explosives underwater. But this one hadn't gone off. He reported it calmly. The crew above went pale. "Get him up," said Fletcher quietly. "Now." Back on deck, Reed handed over the shell. The captain examined it under a lamp. A small marking, the German eagle, gleamed faintly through the corrosion. They all understood what that meant. The Nazis had found a way to attack the Allies' lifeline without firing a shot. Fletcher turned to his men. "If they know where this cable runs, they'll hit it again. We repair it now, and we move." For the next 16 hours, the Telconia worked in total blackout. Engines off, lights off, only whispers, tools, and the endless hiss of wind. The men spliced the new section, soldering and sealing with trembling hands as waves threatened to tear everything apart. When they finished, Ellis held his breath and sent a signal through the line. A single tone, faint but steady, came back. "Signal restored," he said softly. For a moment, no one spoke. Then someone started to cheer, quiet at first, then louder, until it drowned even the wind. That night, Fletcher wrote in his logbook by candlelight, "We repaired the wire. The line between worlds holds once more. The sea tried to bury us, but the message endures." He closed the book and looked out into the dark ocean, where lightning flashed in the distance, silent and far away. They would never be decorated for their mission. No medals, no parades. But because of them, messages would flow again. Plans would move, troops would land, and history would turn. The war raged on above the surface, but deep below, in the realm of silence and storms, the Telconia's crew had won a battle no one would ever see. April 17th, 1944, North Atlantic, south of Greenland. The wind had shifted overnight. The Telconia rolled in slow, heavy arcs, the waves breaking cold spray across her deck. The North Atlantic was steel grey, and the horizon was empty. Too empty. For 6 days the crew had been tracing the broken transatlantic cable, hauling it from the freezing depths, cutting, splicing, and testing it section by section. The job was slow, dangerous, and delicate. One mistake, one frayed wire, one bad seal, and the entire line would fail again. But now, as the last splice was made and the signal meter began to hum, Chief Engineer Martin Reeve felt something odd. The cable was alive again, but the sound it made wasn't right. Normally, when a repaired line reconnected, you'd hear a steady, rhythmic pulse, the faint whisper of telegraph code, or the background hum of current running clean through copper. This sound was uneven, stuttering, echoing, as if someone was tapping from the other side of the ocean. Reeve frowned and leaned over the oscilloscope. Weather had been brutal. Gale-force winds, heavy snow. The main Allied communication lines were jammed with D-Day coordination. No one was listening to a civilian cable ship in the middle of nowhere. So they stayed on station, trying to trace the phantom transmission. By the third night, Reeve was certain it wasn't natural interference. The signal came at the same time each night, 0200 hours precisely, and each time it was stronger. The messages were fragments, pieces of something mechanical and human at once. "Cable intact, testing transmission, repeat, 4,000 meters. The fourth night, the message changed. "You are not alone." The crew grew restless. Some joked about ghosts in the wires, others muttered about German trickery, some kind of U-boat transmission designed to lure ships into ambushes. But when they checked the sonar, the water was clear. No submarines, no wrecks, nothing but deep water. Then just after dawn on April 21st, the lookout called down from the bridge. "Captain, object off the port bow." They all ran to see. Through the mist, something dark and metallic bobbed in the waves, a buoy, half submerged, covered in ice. Harland ordered it retrieved. The deckhands hooked it with grappling lines and hauled it aboard. The metal was old, pitted with rust, marked with faded stencils in both English and German. Reeve crouched beside it, brushing away the grime. "That's no buoy, it's a repeater unit, from a cable system." "But ours doesn't use these," said Harland. "No, but the Germans do." They opened the casing. Inside were corroded vacuum tubes, twisted wires, and, strangest of all, a small recording reel, still intact, protected in wax paper. Reeve threaded it through a portable player. The tape hissed, then began to crackle with sound. At first, only static. Then voices, a man's voice, speaking German, then English. "Test transmission, listening, repeat, 1942, line confirmed." The accent was thick, the tone calm, almost academic. Reeve frowned. "That's not a soldier, that's an engineer." The voice repeated several sequences of numbers, then abruptly stopped. After a few seconds of silence, another voice came on, fainter, female, speaking English this time. "Signal received, confirm position, cable 12, end of line." Then nothing. The tape ended. That night, Reeve sat in the communications cabin long after the others turned in. The storm had eased, and the sea was eerily still. He replayed the signal on the oscilloscope. This time, he noticed something new. Faint background noise behind the Morse pulses, a sound like creaking metal, and breathing. He followed the coordinates encoded in the signal. They pointed to a patch of ocean known to cable layers as the Hollow. No ships went there anymore. Depth charts said the seafloor dropped into an abyss, too deep for divers, too dark for light. Harland came down to check on him.
"You're still at it?" "I can't let it go, sir. That signal's not from a buoy, it's from the cable itself." Harland stared at him. "The cable's dead beyond this point, Reeve. It ends." Reeve didn't look up. "That's what we thought." The signal pulsed again. Long, short, long, the same pattern. Then faintly, another word. "Listening." At 3 a.m., Reeve went topside. The sea was black and glassy, the stars faint through thin mist. He stood at the rail holding his earphones, following the signal's rhythmic beat. It seemed to come from everywhere. From the wind, from the hull, from the water itself.
And for the first time, he thought he heard something beneath the Morse, a human hum, like someone trying to match the pitch of the ocean. He whispered to himself, "Who are you?" A crackle of static. Then a final reply. "Still here." The line went dead. Reeve stayed there for hours, staring at the horizon, the headphones cold in his hands. When dawn came, the Telconia resumed her work, laying cable, repairing lines, preparing to sail home. But that section of cable, the one that whispered in the night, they left untouched. Not because of fear, because none of them could bring themselves to cut it again. April 24th, 1944, North Atlantic, the Hollow. The storm passed, leaving a glassy calm that felt wrong. The North Atlantic never stayed still for long. The crew of the Telconia worked in silence, their breath fogging in the morning cold. Beneath them, 2 miles of dark water waited, cold, crushing, and full of secrets. Captain Harland stood at the rail, scanning the empty horizon. "You're sure this is the spot?" Chief Engineer Reeve nodded, his eyes red from lack of sleep. "The signal peaks here, exactly here. If there's something down there, this is where we'll find it." The captain frowned. "You realize how deep that is? 4,000 meters. Our diving gear's rated for a fraction of that." "I know, sir," Reeve said quietly. "But we can send the crawler." He gestured toward the deck, where a small submersible drone, little more than a steel sphere with a camera, propellers, and a spool of cable, sat ready. The Telconia had used it before for deep repairs, though never at such a depth. It was experimental, fragile, and temperamental in the cold. Reeve knelt beside it, tightening the last bolts on its housing. "If that signal's coming from below the seabed, I want to see what's there." Harland sighed, rubbing his gloved hands. "All right, Martin, let's wake the ghosts." By midday, the crawler descended into the abyss. Its camera flickered through static as the winch line unspooled. On the screen in the operations cabin, the light from its small headlamp illuminated the descent, a faint snowfall of marine snow, the endless black swallowing everything. "Depth 1,000 meters, called the sonar operator. Reeve leaned forward, headphones on, listening. The signal was steady now, a faint, rhythmic pulse beneath the static. "Cables holding," said another crewman. "No strain." At 2,000 meters, visibility dropped to nothing. The camera showed only darkness and the shimmer of particles passing by. The signal grew stronger. 3,500 meters, came the call, approaching target depth. Reeve's eyes were fixed on the monitor. The hum in his headphones had changed, less like code, more like a heartbeat. "Stop descent," Harland ordered. "Let's pan the lights." The crawler's twin beams swept across the seabed, a barren plain of silt and rock, nothing unusual. Then, as the lights turned again, something metallic glimmered. "Hold there!" Reeve shouted. "Zoom in!" The image steadied, a curved shape, half buried in sediment. At first glance, it looked like wreckage. But as the crawler moved closer, it became clear it wasn't a ship. It was round, ribbed, and connected to the seabed by thick, corroded cables. "What in God's name is that?" Harland whispered. The shape came into view, a dome, maybe 15 meters wide, with a series of circular openings along its base. On its side, faint letters were visible through the grime. Reeve leaned close. "It's not German, that's English." He squinted. "CS Monarch." 1918, Harland stared. That can't be right. The Monarch was lost during the last war, sunk in a storm off the coast of Ireland. "Then what's it doing here?" Before anyone could answer, the crawler's signal crackled. The camera flickered, distorted, then froze. The sound in Reeve's headset spiked, a shriek of static that made him tear them off. The lights on the crawler blinked out. For a full minute, no one spoke. The only sound was the low hum of the generators. "Try to reel her up," Harland ordered. The winch groaned as the line tightened, then stopped. "It's snagged," said the operator. "Feels like something's holding it." Reeve turned pale. "Kill the motors. If we pull too hard, we'll lose it." They waited in tense silence, watching the monitors. Then, slowly, the crawler's camera came back to life. But the picture was different. Instead of the seabed, it now showed what looked like a corridor. Metallic, narrow, with pipes along the walls. The crawler had been dragged inside something. "What the hell?" Harland muttered. "That's a structure." A light flickered deep in the tunnel, illuminating a rusted sign. "Atlantic Cable Station, property of the British Admiralty." Reeve's hands trembled. "That's impossible. There's no record of any deep-sea station." "Maybe it was classified," Harland said. "An early relay?" Before Reeve could reply, the camera turned, showing a steel door ahead. On it, someone had painted, long ago, a single word: listening. Then the crawler's feed cut to black. Hours later, the crew gathered in the mess hall. No one ate. The storm had returned, howling across the decks, slamming waves against the hull. Reeve sat apart, scribbling in his logbook. Every few minutes, he checked the signal receiver. The phantom transmission had stopped. Maybe it's over, Harland said, trying to sound convincing. Reeve shook his head. You don't understand? If that structure was really a cable station, it would have needed power, generators, maybe even a crew. There should be no way it's active after all these years. Unless someone's still down there, said one of the younger sailors quietly. The room went still. Reeve looked up. Who? The sailor shrugged. Maybe the same people sending those messages. Harland slammed his fist on the table. Enough ghost stories. We finish our repair and get out of this cursed place. But when they tried to continue the next morning, the ocean refused. The wind roared, the waves grew violent, and a thick fog rolled in, blinding, soundless, suffocating. Reeve stayed in the comms cabin, watching the signal meter. At exactly 200 hours, at the usual time, the line flickered alive. A new message. Welcome back. The crew didn't sleep that night. They listened as the ocean whispered through the hull, as the cables hummed faintly below deck. By dawn, the message changed again. Repair complete. Then coordinates, leading not east toward England, but west, into open ocean. Reeve traced them on a map. There's nothing there, he said softly. No islands, no cables, nothing. Harland leaned over his shoulder. Then we won't go. But as they turned the ship to head home, the engine stuttered once, twice, then died. The lights flickered and the cable meters began to spin on their own. Somewhere below, in the deep, the Telconia's cables were moving, pulled taut, dragging against the unseen. Reeve stared at the trembling dials. Captain, it's pulling us back. April 26, 1944. North Atlantic, 200 nautical miles west of Ireland. The engines refused to start. The ship drifted powerless in a grey sea that seemed to have no end. The fog was thick as smoke, clinging to the deck like breath on glass. Below, in the cable room, the reels spun slowly, pulled by something deep under the waves. The tension gauge trembled just below the danger mark. Captain Harland stood beside Chief Engineer Reeve, watching the steel lines shiver and hum. "Cut it," Harland said. "We're not staying tied to that thing." Reeve hesitated. "If I cut the main line, we lose all connection. We'll never know what's down there." "That's the idea," the captain said sharply. "We came to fix a break, not to haul up the devil." But as the engineer reached for the hydraulic cutter, the humming stopped. Every man in the room froze. The silence that followed was worse. Then the radio came alive. It began as static, a long hiss, like breathing through a closed door. Then through the noise came a faint voice. "Telconia. Maintain position. Repair complete." The voice was calm, British, clipped, like an officer reading coordinates. Reeve stepped to the set. "Who is this? Identify yourself." No response, only the faint hum, then another burst of words. "A signal stable. Transmission clear. Atlantic line operational." Harland frowned. "That can't be from London. The line's still down. We haven't even finished repairs." Reeve turned to the operator. "Can you trace it?" The man shook his head. "It's coming through our own cable, sir, from below." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Reeve leaned into the mic again. "This is Chief Engineer Martin Reeve of the CS Telconia. Identify your station." The reply came instantly, crisp and emotionless. "Atlantic Relay 3, monitoring post active. Do not disconnect." Harland's brow furrowed. "There is no Relay 3? Reeve's hands trembled on the mic. "Repeat. There is no such station. Who are you?" A pause, then slowly, "We are the wire." The line went dead. For a full minute, no one moved. Only the low groan of the ship's hull echoed in the silence. Harland broke it first. "All right, we cut it. Now." Reeve nodded numbly, signaling the men. They positioned the hydraulic cutter over the steel line and triggered the clamp. The cutter hissed, tightening. Then the lights flickered and every reel in the room began to spin backward. "Power surge!" one of the crew shouted. "It's feeding current into us." The cutter's motor failed, sparks flying. The air smelled of burning insulation. Harland grabbed Reeve's arm. "Get topside!" On deck, the sea was unnaturally calm again. No waves, no wind, just the endless flat grey stretching to the horizon. The ship drifted in silence, anchored to something unseen. Reeve stared over the rail. "It's alive," he said quietly. Harland turned. "What?" "The cable. It's not just transmitting signals, it's absorbing them. Every message, every pulse, every voice that's ever passed through it, it's been collecting them. Like an echo chamber." "You're saying it remembers?" Reeve nodded. "And now it's speaking back." The captain rubbed his forehead. "We'll sever it manually if we have to. Get your diving gear." The engineer froze. "You want to go down there, in this?" Harland's eyes were hollow. "If that line's alive, I want to see what it's connected to." By nightfall, they were ready. The storm lanterns threw dim light across the deck as the two men descended into the freezing water. The sea swallowed them instantly, dark, heavy, endless. The only sound was their own breathing through the helmets. They followed the cable downward. It glowed faintly, a pale green shimmer pulsing along its length. After 50 meters, Harland stopped. His lamp revealed a cluster of small, barnacle-covered objects fused to the cable. He brushed one and nearly dropped his light. It wasn't metal, it was bone. Human bone, twisted into the wire like coral. Skulls, ribs, fragments of uniform cloth, faces locked in silent screams. Reeve's voice crackled over the intercom. "Captain, those aren't wreck victims. Look at their arms." Each skeleton's hand clutched the cable, fingers fused to the metal. The glow from the line brightened, flickering rhythmically, like a heartbeat. Then the whispering began. Through their headsets came a chorus of faint voices, men and women, layered, overlapping. Some cried, some sang, some repeated the same words again and again. "Keep the line open," or "Keep the line open." Harland ripped off his headset underwater, shaking his head violently. The voices were still there, vibrating through the water itself. He pointed upward, signaling retreat. Reeve nodded, but as they turned, the cable jerked, twisting like a serpent. Reeve's foot was caught. He kicked, pulling hard, but the wire tightened around his leg. His voice was a muffled scream over the comms. "It's pulling me!" Harland grabbed him, cutting at the wire with his knife. The glow brightened until it burned white. The water around them trembled with the sound of distant whispers growing louder, thousands of overlapping voices shouting, pleading, remembering. The wire snapped. The glow vanished, and the sea went black. When Harland woke, he was lying on the deck, soaked and gasping. The crew surrounded him. "Where's Reeve?" someone asked. The captain looked at his hands, empty. He didn't make it." The men were silent. Later, when they hauled up the severed cable, they found it cleanly cut and cold to the touch, even after hours in the sun. The signal never returned. They sailed for home. 2 weeks later, in London, a signalman at Bletchley Park logged a brief, unauthorized transmission. The source was traced to the mid-Atlantic, on the same frequency as the old cable relay. It lasted only 4 words before disappearing forever. "Repair complete. Reeve speaking. April 27th, 1944, North Atlantic, 04:15 hours. The storm had passed, but the sea was wrong. It was too still, too flat, as if the ocean itself was holding its breath. The Telconia drifted in the dawn light, her hull blackened by salt and lightning. Every antenna stood dead, every compass needle spun lazily. The men spoke in whispers now, afraid to disturb whatever fragile balance had settled over the water. Chief Engineer Reeve hadn't slept in 2 days. His hands trembled as he tightened the bolts around the backup generator. It was useless work. The engines were shot, and the radio cabin was fried. But doing something felt better than thinking. Then came the knock. 3 soft taps on the outer hull. At first, no one moved. The sound came again, precise, deliberate, metallic. Morse code. "Captain," Reeve whispered, "that's coming from outside." Harland stepped closer, his face pale in the cold dawn. "What's it saying?" Reeve closed his eyes, translating by instinct. "Open the line." By noon, the fog had thickened again. The crew gathered in the operations cabin, faces drawn, hands shaking from cold and fear. Harland laid a revolver on the table. "We've got 2 choices," he said. "We either reconnect the line and find out what's down there, or we cut it clean and sail home." Someone laughed bitterly. "Home? Engines are dead, sir. Even if we wanted to, we're stuck." Reeve looked up from his charts. "We could reconnect manually. It's risky, but if we splice the line, maybe we can send a message through." Harland nodded slowly. "Do it." Reeve hesitated. "Captain, what if it's not a person on the other end?" Harland's eyes didn't waver. "Then we'll find out what it is." They worked in silence. The steel cable, heavy as a man's torso, was hauled across the deck, glistening with seawater. Reeve and his team stripped the insulation, exposing the copper veins beneath. The salt air stung their eyes as they soldered the connection, sealing it with tar and resin. When it was done, Reeve flipped the breaker. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the radio sparked to life. Static. Then a voice. Not loud. Just a whisper, faint and hollow. "Telconia. Connection confirmed. Begin transmission." Reeve leaned forward. "This is Chief Engineer Arthur Reeve of the CS Telconia. Who is this?" No reply, only the hum of current through the line. Then, softly, "Arthur Reeve, Chief Engineer, CS Telconia, born 1905, died April 27, 1944. Reeve froze. "That's not funny." The voice repeated it, exactly the same. "Died April 27, 1944. The power flickered, lights dimmed. The ship vibrated with that same deep hum, the sound crawling through the floorboards, through their bones. The radio operator stumbled back.
"Sir, the gauge is reading power flow from the cable, not the generator. It's feeding energy into us." Harland gripped the edge of the console. "Shut it down! I can't! The breakers are jammed!" The radio hissed, the sound swelling into 1,000 overlapping voices. It was men, women, all speaking at once, all saying the same thing. "We are connected." Every light on the ship blazed white. Then silence. When Reeve opened his eyes, the world was grey. The cabin was still, filled with smoke. The crew lay unconscious around him. Harland was slumped against the wall, his revolver on the floor.
The radio was dead, burned out completely. The cable drum was still. Reeve pushed himself up, ears ringing, and staggered to the porthole. The sea outside was black glass, not a ripple, not a sound. He turned and froze. Every crewman was standing now, silent, faces expressionless. They stared at him, eyes pale and distant, like mirrors. Harland spoke first, voice calm, almost kind. "Arthur, it's all right, we finished the repair." Reeve backed away. "Captain, what happened?" "We connected," Harland said softly. "The line's clear now, no more interference, no more noise." Reeve shook his head. "No, that thing, whatever it is, it's inside the system. We have to cut it." Harland smiled. "You can't cut it. You're part of it now." Reeve ran. He burst onto the deck, gasping in the cold air. The sky was white, blinding. The cable lay coiled near the stern, faintly glowing. It pulsed, once, twice, like a heartbeat. He grabbed the axe and swung. Sparks flew. The hum deepened, vibrating through the deck, through his skull. He swung again, the glow brightened, and the air itself began to shake. The captain's voice came from behind him, calm, steady.
Arthur, stop fighting it. The signal needs a carrier. Reeve turned. Harlan stood in the fog, the rest of the crew behind him. It's not a message, Harlan said. It's memory. The sea remembers everything that touches it. Every voice, every scream, every transmission. The cable just gave it shape. Reeve raised the axe again. Then I'll destroy it. Harlan stepped closer. You can't destroy time. The cable flared white. The sound exploded, not noise, but pure, layered voices. Every message ever sent through the Atlantic poured through the air at once. Orders from generals.
Pleas from sinking ships, the cries of SOS signals lost to static. Then through it all, Reeve heard his own voice again. "This is the Telconia, preparing to descend." He dropped the axe. The light washed over him. Days later, a Royal Navy destroyer found the Telconia adrift. No crew, no signs of struggle. Only the ship's log, its last entry, written in Reeve's handwriting. April 27, 1944. The line is open. The sea speaks. We are part of the transmission now. The destroyer's radio operator later reported strange interference when passing near the wreck. Faint voices whispering through the static. When decoded, the message was simple. Connection confirmed.